What's up, guys? Welcome back to CagedIn MMA. It's your host, Ebit Sochiwa, and we are officially talking about UFC 305. Unfortunately, I am making this video very, very late. It's the night of the fight, but I'm going to go ahead, run down a few main fights, talk about the picks. Again, I've been kind of consistent with talking about all the fights for a period of time, like the UFC main cards. So I want to keep doing it. It's fun. It's exciting. I like learning about the fighters and watching the fights and everything like that. So let's go ahead, talk about UFC 305. If you're new, we always start off with the Dana White call out. That being said, I'm not trying to fight him. I'm just trying to get tickets to a UFC fight. Why? Because I've been a fan for decades, and unfortunately, he doesn't make fights in, you know, Georgia. So, it's like ATL is a big popular spot. He never comes down here. So I need a ticket, man. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, Dana White, come on. I've been a fan for over a decade. I think I said decades. Over a decade. I ain't that old. And then I spent money. I got the UFC watch. I got these dolls. You know what I'm saying? So I love the sport. It's entertaining. I've always watched it. So yeah, let's go ahead. And if you guys are also new, we do trivia. So 3 questions. If you get it right, good job. If you don't get it right, then if you have a friend or something, they gotta hit you type deal. You know what I'm saying? So first question: when did Adesanya fight last? I'll give y'all a few seconds. Not who did he fight last, when. If y'all know who, y'all probably know when. But ain't an exact date, you know what I'm saying? Just a little time frame. Anyways, he fought September of last year, 2023. So he fought Strickland, obviously. He took a leave. I mean, he was like the most active fighter in the UFC, active UFC champ, fighting like 3 times a year. And yeah, man. I mean, I'm not going to lie. He did say that he was going to take a longer leave, etc., things like that. But obviously, the opportunity arose, and I'm sure he was happy to take it. So, yes, sir. It's been a while, a year off. Let's see how he goes, and we're gonna go more in depth about that later on in the video. So, next question: out of 14 wins, how many knockouts does Rosenstruik have? He's also fighting on the main card, if you guys didn't know. This guy's a dog, too. So, out of 14 wins, he has 13 knockouts. So that means one win, he knocked somebody out, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying? So, heavyweight obviously is always like that. These guys are stacked with knockouts and things like that. So super excited for that fight. I doubt it's going to go to distance or anything. You got 2 strikers, heavyweight, Tai Tuivasa and Rosenstruik going at it. It's going to be a blast. And I'm actually excited to see that one because, again, like I said, I'm looking for a crazy knockout. Anyways, last question. What is DDP a second degree black belt in? Many of you guys may not know this, but you know, he's a little more stocky, things like that. But I didn't know this until a little bit ago. I think like a few couple fights ago type deal. I think I've actually asked this question before as a trivia question. Maybe. I think sounds familiar for like this sort of scenario. Anyways, he has a second degree black belt in kickboxing. So it's actually, again, like I said, many of you guys probably didn't realize, recognize it, or you're probably in shock, like, oh dang, So this fight is going to be beautiful. I'm expecting. I'm hoping they stay on the feet, but also obviously for DDP, it's like he has to use his wrestling. He has to use his takedowns, things like that. He's a great all around fighter. Nobody has tested Adesanya's wrestling as much in the middleweight division. Obviously, you got Jan Blachowicz, but that was light heavyweight, things like that. But like I said, I'm super excited to see this fight and where it plays out, how it plays out, and where it goes. So let's go ahead talk about the main card. Like I said, we're gonna do a quick video on this and talk about the main, I guess, last four fights of the main card. And again, night of the fight, I'm probably do my predictions, go about it. I'm not saying use my predictions to bet, but if you see my record, in all the previous videos and all that stuff, when I do make my picks and stuff like that, I typically get most right. So, and not to brag, but on the UFC 5 game, uh, like type deal, there's a couple of times that I have got the community high score and stuff. So I'm just saying, you guess the rounds, type of finish, all that stuff, decision, whatever. But anyways, let's go ahead get into it. Main card: Tai Tuivasa versus Rosenstruik. Rosenstruik is 14-5, 13 knockouts, 9 first round finishes. He's beat Gaziv, Daukus, Sakai, Dos Santos. Right now, he has won one and obviously lost his five fights. But out of those five losses, look who he has lost to, which is crazy. All right. He lost to Almeida, which obviously was a top contender right now. And he lost to Volkov, which has always been a top contender. He lost to Blades, who recently just fought for the belt. He lost to Gon, which again was number one fighting for the belt. And he lost to Ngannou, former champion of the heavyweight division. So if you see his losses, these guys have been dogs, have been top of the game, things like that. So I'm super excited to see this fight. Again, I doubt it's going to go to decision or anything like that. I think a first round or even second round finish is going to be my go-to. You got Tai Tuivasa. He's 15-7, 14 knockouts, 12 first round finishes. He's beat Derek Lewis, Sakai, and Hunsucker. He's on a 4-fight loss streak um, currently, so it's not like a great position that he's in right now. Uh, he's lost to Tybura, Volkov, Pavlovich, and Gaunt. And again, when you look at those recent losses, Tybura, obviously a top contender or top dog. He's been in the game for a while. He's Volkov, obviously, like we just talked about it, he's also has been a top contender for the longest. Pavlovich, as well. I mean, he just fought Tom Aspinall. He's fighting again, and I'm actually excited to see him fight again. It was Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall when they fought. They had like super close, uh, like their time in the octagon was super close because they just knocked people out so quick. And then Cyril Gahn obviously was the number one contender. So when you look at again the people he's lost to as well, these guys are top contenders. Now, the reason why I say possibly a second round finish is because their chins are insane. Even Gone when he was fighting Tuivasa, like Gone pieced him up, kept piecing him up and everything like that. Hit him with some crazy shots in the face and the chin, and he wouldn't go down. So that's why I believe that their chins will hold up in the fight, but I do see a finish coming into play. Next, we got Dan Hooker versus Gamrot. This is going to be a crazy fight. Many people haven't really talked about Gamrot, stuff like that, so I'm excited for him to fight again. Obviously, there's not a big gap in like the rankings or anything, but Gamrot, obviously, I think he definitely deserves. He's definitely in line for a next title shot. But again, we're going to get into that real quick. So we'll start off with Hooker, Dan Hooker. He's 23-12, 11 knockouts, 7 submission wins, and 12 first round finishes. He's beat Turner, Puelles recently, and this has been recently. He's been on a kind of like an up and down era right now, and obviously he beat somebody like Burns back in 2018. But again, he hasn't been on the best road, I guess you could say. And I mean, he's lost to Arnold Allen, Islam Makachev, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier. So it's like the guys he's lost to. It's also like these guys are dogs, right? Poirier just fought Islam for the belt. Islam is obviously champion. Chandler, he's been on the sidelines, but he's a dog in himself. He's fought Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. So he's technically kind of at the top of the ladder as well. But again, Dan Hooker, he's I mean, even when he fought Poirier, right? He gave us a great fight, great entertainment, and I'd always been a fan of Dan Hooker. Actually, early on in his career, I was like, man, like, I thought he was going to be like one of those like number two, number one guys holding up, uh, not holding up the division, if not like, kind of like that, who nobody could get past, kind of like a Robert Whitaker, is a good kind of like example. But next we got, let's talk about Gamrot. He's 24-2, 8 knockouts, 5 submission wins, 3 first round finishes. He's beat Dos Anjos, Fiziev, Turner, Sarukian, Jeremy Stevens. Now, he lost to Beneil Dariush in 2022. That was 2 years ago. Okay. So it's like this guy is 24-2. Okay. He's beat top dogs in the division. And it's like, obviously, he lost to Beneil Dariush, who fought for the belt, fought Charles Oliveira, lost to Charles Oliveira, and then Charles Oliveira obviously is number one. And again, it's like it's kind of one of those where it's like, man, Gamrot definitely deserves the title shot. It was just in the position, like during that time when he lost to Beneil Dariush, the division was stacked. It still has crazy movement, right? Right now, it's one of my favorite divisions right now, and most entertaining division currently, in my opinion. But literally, like that division is stacked. So obviously Gamrot, if he beats Dan Hooker, which is kind of, I think Dan Hooker right now is ranked 11, which again isn't really too good to set up a title shot. But again, you got to make the Charles Oliveira Islam rematch, and then just go from there. I mean, you got a lot of plays right now. So from there, we got Kai Kara France versus Steve Urseg. Steve Urseg, I've talked about him in previous podcasts about how I stand or how I felt about him fighting Pantoja. But let's go again about his record. He's 12-2, 1 knockout, 6 submission wins. He has 5 first round finishes. He's beat Schnell and Costa. He doesn't have a long record in the UFC. I mean, I think this is going to be his fourth fight in the UFC. So it's like the most notable names that he does have is like Schnell and Costa. But other than that, it's kind of like one of those where it's like, I mean, he lost to Pantoja currently, which is the champ, but it's like he was like number 11 when he fought the champ. So it's like, it's one of those where that division definitely needs movement in itself. There's not a lot of plays because it's like both Brandon Moreno and Alexander Pantoja, they kind of beat all the top dogs in the division already. So it's like one of those where it's like, what do you even do? So this one, it's kind of like Urseg is making his name, I guess, has already made his name against the champ, but he lost. So maybe they're trying to, I don't know. That division is actually pretty tricky, but the fight is good. I like this fight. I like this matchup. Kai Kara France is one of those also. He's a dog, and we're about to talk about him. But again, it's like definitely Steve. It's like um, I feel like they did give him that title shot way too early. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into Kai Kara France. He's 24-11, 11 knockouts, 3 submission wins, 12 first-round finishes. He's beat Askarov, Garbrandt, and Bontorin. And again, he's lost to people like Albazi, Morano, Royval. So again, it's like these guys. He's been in the game longer. If I'm making my pick, it's going to go with Kai Kara France as well. And I don't know if I gave you all my pick for the last fight, but obviously not. I don't think it was obvious actually, but I had Gamrot winning for against Dan Hooker. But really, I think Gamrot is going to wrestle. That's why, and kind of use his wrestling. I mean, we saw the exchanges against him and Sarukian, and even against Dariush. So it's like it was crazy, man. I love that fight. But anyways, We got obviously Kai Car France, 24-11. I went through that, but he's beat somebody like Askarov Garbrandt, who obviously is a legend in the sport, and definitely experience and everything like that is with Kai Car France. Don't get me wrong, Steve is very quick with his hands, things like that, but you got to realize like that division, they're all pretty quick. They're all snappy and they move, around and keep the movement on their feet. So it's like it's I'm definitely excited for that fight. Um Finding people like, or even preparing for people like Royval and Moreno. Royval is very quick. Moreno is very technical with his boxing as well. So I don't know. I think he's definitely going to beat, Steve in this fight, Kai Car France. So next, for the main event of the evening, fighting for the African Championship belt, we got Dricus du Plessis, DDP, versus Israel Adesanya. Let's go ahead and start with the challenger. Adesanya, he's 24-3, 16 knockouts, 6 first round finishes. Let's get into the people he's beat. All right, this guy's record obviously is insane. He's one of the best middleweights ever to ever exist, and he's walked through the division. The division finally has a movement, I guess you could say, and it's exciting. I always loved the middleweight division. Back then, it was my favorite division. Now, early on, when I first started watching the sport, I really liked the light heavyweight division. Obviously, you had John Jones, things like that, Lyoto Machida, and then even like, I mean, honestly, back then it was a different breed too. Like you had GSP, and then you had Chuck Liddell, and then I got these guys all over here, right here. So you had more movement back then. But anyways, I really like that there's movement again in the middleweight division. And obviously, the fact that Izzy, he just kept destroying these guys is crazy. But let's get into his record right now. He's beat Pereira, Cannonier, Whitaker twice, Marvin Vittori, Paulo Costa, Yoel Romero, Kelvin Gastelum, Anderson Silva, Brunson, and Tavares. It's crazy. I mean, obviously, his early fights were like Brad Tavares, Brunson, and it's like then again, the fight with Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, these this guy has been in wars. He's fought the top of the top people of the division, the top people ever. And it's like, again, Alex Pereira, Jared Cannonier, to beat Robert Whitaker twice is insane in itself. Robert Whitaker has been holding that number one spot for the longest. Obviously now he's I think ranked number two because Izzy no Sean is one. Dang, yeah, there's a lot of movement actually because you got DDP at one probably. No DDP as champ. My fault. Sean Strickland as one. Who's at two? I don't know if it's Izzy or Whitaker. That's actually an interesting one. Most likely Izzy though, and then Whitaker. It only makes sense since Izzy beat Whitaker. But anyways, yeah, that's a crazy fight. I can't wait for DDP and Adesanya. Obviously, it's tonight, so I'm just passing time right now. But anyways, the guys he's beat obviously is insane. Now the guys he's lost to two, he doesn't have. He only has 3 losses, guys. So it's like he lost to Sean Strickland, he lost to Alex Pereira, his biggest rival, and John Blachowicz. So Jan Blachowicz was obviously in the light heavyweight division. He tried going up. Jan just kind of walked through him, and honestly, he outboxed him and everything like that. Then you got Alex Pereira, his biggest rival ever. He's fought him. He had fought him twice before. Fought him for the third time. He was winning the fight. Alex came back. Beautiful. Now they do another rematch in MMA. Izzy gets his revenge, and then he fights Strickland because DDP got injured, and fights Strickland. Strickland pieces him up, honestly. Then Izzy takes a layoff, and now here we are. So now before we get into that, because I do want to talk about that, let's talk about DDP. He's 21-2. He's on a 9-fight win streak, guys. 9 knockouts, 10 submission wins, 10 submissions, all right, and 9 knockouts. Is crazy. He's a good all-around fighter. He beat Strickland, he's beat Whitaker, he beat Brunson, he beat Darren Till, and he's beat Tavares. It's crazy. This guy is legit stacked. I mean, this guy literally is. I mean, his record and the people he's fought in the UFC is insane. I mean, Strickland, who pieced up Izzy, and then DDP went to war with Strickland. All right, Strickland is no easy fight, but he went to war with Strickland. In my opinion, Strickland won that fight. But again, here we are. DDP won, and DDP obviously also knocked Whitaker out, which was crazy. I mean, I'll accept this one. When DDP was fighting Whitaker, I didn't. I still don't think many people can beat Whitaker. Whitaker is just you got to find that flaw in him, and that's what DDP did. He found that little mistake that Robert Whitaker does, and caught him with that little mistake. Because Robert Whitaker literally has so much experience. He's so quick. He's so fast. His jab is insane. It's like, man, Robert Whitaker is one of my favorite fighters. All right, if you guys obviously could tell. But the fact that he knocked out Whitaker, then he's beat Brunson, who Izzy fought, right? He beat Darren Till, which Darren Till was again one of the top contenders, and he's beat Brad Tavares, which again Izzy has also beat as well. So they're in the UFC. Obviously, Izzy has been in it the longest, and he has fought more guys and more top guys. So obviously, we're gonna see him as a challenger again. So if Izzy wins, he'll be three-time champ. And if he loses, obviously, DDP takes it back. Now, obviously, this is the night of the fight. So if you guys have seen the press conference, things like that, it was funny, it was crazy, and so much emotions, I guess. So Izzy, man, I don't know. Like, let me know what you guys think. Like, is this too early? Do you guys believe like Izzy should have took a little more of a layoff? Maybe Strickland and DDP got their rematch, and then give it to Izzy. And that's probably another thing where it's like they didn't want to make that because now the hype is there for the UFC to make money and get Izzy and versus DDP, Africa, obviously the African champ, things like that. I thought they were going to try to make it in Africa, but obviously time frame, things like that. I'm sure there's a lot to do about that. But anyways, um, Izzy started crying at the press conference. DDP really didn't attack him too much, like being straight up. Like, if you guys watched the press conference, there wasn't much that DDP said that should have took or ticked Izzy off. So this is where I'm saying it's like, man, Izzy looks like mad and into his head, and DDP got into his head. I mean, even the little comment where it was like, "Oh, nobody said anything about dogs." Izzy started laughing, but then he got serious. So it's like, what's like I don't know. But then obviously you got DDP tweeting or saying like, "Oh, bro, it's just a press conference. It's not that serious." So it's like, I mean, he gets in your head. It's a weird way that he gets in your head because he even got a little into Strickland's head. But let me know what you guys think. I mean, I really think that Izzy should have took a little longer layoff. He's been super active for the longest, and he gets backlash a lot. I mean, you know how fans are. I mean, he did a podcast with Mighty Mouse, and if you guys watched that podcast, it was pretty funny. Mighty Mouse kind of set it up though. He was in at the bar. It was like a bar setting. They started talking about Pereira. They talked about a lot of things, right? But it was just like funny, and I'm about to say like ironic. But they're talking about Pereira, and he's like, "Oh, like I beat him once. How ironic, right?" But Izzy caught on, like, "Oh, that's ironic because now you're saying like, oh, I beat that guy once in a bar." That's why many people are saying Mighty Mouse set that up. But anyways, a lot has been going on. His interview with Nina, it was kind of weird. Like he felt like it seemed like he was forced, or I don't know, kind of putting a persona. But again, this is another thing. Ryan Garcia, he put up a persona that he was crazy and all this stuff and things like that. I'm not saying Izzy is doing the same thing. Obviously, him being upset with his parents, like, or like not with his parents, but like crying, saying like, oh, fights for his family and stuff like that. Like those are real emotions. But like things like interviews, like him being serious and acting out and things like that, like it might just be a persona where it's like DDP, is like, oh no, he's out of it, whatever, he needed more layoff, kind of like what I think, like, hey, maybe he should have needed more time. So again, we never know. These guys are fighters, not only fighters though, they're entertainers, and not only be and being an entertainer, you got to be somewhat of an actor, right? So it's like, again, you got to be all three. So who knows? But tonight we're gonna figure out how this fight plays out. And yeah, let me know your guys' prediction. My prediction for this fight though is DDP. Uh, if it goes to like more decision and stuff, if it's like a knockout and things like that, I kind of sense more Izzy being real. It's weird because it's like many people will be like, "Oh no, DDP has more power," things like that. But I think Izzy is more precise, quick, and stuff like that. So I think he could catch him kind of like he caught Paulo Costa. So it's like not too much movement, but then hits him, off balances DDP, etc. But anyways, like I said, let me know your guys' prediction, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast.